We are right now in the solo show selection by Dutch artist Jan Robert Leegte. The exhibition spans works from the last years, and Jan Robert, who's based in Amsterdam, works with the internet since the late 90s. We invited the artist for an interview to delve deeper into the themes of the exhibition and to gain more insights into his artistic practice over the past years. So we are very happy to have Jan Robert Leegte today with us and talk about his exhibition here with us at Office and Part. So Jan, maybe first of all, can you tell us a little bit about your work in general?
Yes, since the late 90s I've been captured by this digital realm with the early internet, and always had a fascination for the computer as this new entity to deal with. In my case, artistically. So I set off sort of trying to understand the nature of the digital and the digital realm and dissect it in all its parts and phenomena that arrive. And to do that, as it's so vastly new and it was such a vast new place for an artist to proceed in, for me it helps to have this lifeline back to art history. It works as a sort of language to help me understand this new stuff and also to help communicate it back to people. So that's been my mission, to really try and understand this stuff or world which is really new and different from what we know, and also find its overlap. And as I said, by throwing art history disciplines or methods at it, you can see what sticks or what breaks and gain some knowledge, continue the adventure.
This works very well with our current show, I think, because we see a selection of works that also probably followed you around the last years. And maybe we dig a little bit deeper into each of the series that we are seeing here. And I would like to start with the installation Schobus, and just tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, it's really a central thread in my work. So these different lines, but it's probably the oldest one, and at a certain point even people were like, hey, Scrollbar guy. They were like, it was something I stuck to my name, but I do keep coming back to it. I started in the late 90s making, I call them net installations, which basically were websites using the simple HTML and elements of the computer and creating sort of these arte povera installations, you could say, nearly. And one of the materials I used was the scroll bar. So you can invoke it very easily with code, and it has this instant, very material presence. It's interactive, it looks physical with the trombleu on it and everything. And I would make these compositions with them. And through my whole career, been through many switches, like in the early 2002, I started projecting them in the gallery space, and at a certain point I made like physical versions, and so they've come back in different sort of languages or different expressions of materiality. And also in different contexts, so they could be sculptural, architectural, or they could be more conceptual. And this latest, this is the second time I'm showing a floor installation of numerous scroll bars. And this one relates more to land art, and specifically the pieces of Richard Long. And I like this because Richard Long, of course, he's known for taking these wonderful walks and making sculptures in the wild and then documenting and bringing them back to the gallery space. So I'm doing sort of the same. So they're like referencing online culture and presence, and I'm bringing back these residues, these stones or rocks, and placing them in the gallery. So I'm trying to play with that, and sort of so you get aware of the materiality of this stuff, but also the landscapes of the digital, and let your mind connect them yourself.
We often find simplicity also in your work, and I would like to introduce this together with a series that you did in 2019, drawing a button. And we just see very simple lines, but it turns out to be so much more. And maybe you can tell us how it started, how you came up with this series.
It's sort of this minimalizing, this, which this minimal tradition, of course, has a relationship with what I do, because I'm trying to sort of really get to the core of what the digital is. So it is a dissecting method, and minimalism has the same. So it's of course a way of really showing the essence of a material. So it's very logical to end there, but which I always enjoy a lot is if you would take a lot of American traditions from that time, minimalism, but also abstract expressionism, they have this aversion against illusion. Yeah, it's very much, this is real, this is not. And of course, me dealing with the digital, that always comes in. So it's with the scroll bars, it's like an image of a scroll bar on the floor. In this case, it's a drawing of a button. So it's the suggestion of three-dimensionality, which is classic illusion. So it's trompe-l'œil, things the American fought so hard as us Europeans doing. And now it's coming back, but then merging with this minimalism, which I find ironic, but also poetic. And last but not least, it's also, of course, an ode to this human-machine relationship. And at the core of human-machine interaction is the button. It's like boiled down to this click, click, in, out, 0, 1, on, off, false, true. The Boolean interaction, which is beautiful, because it's this bit which just flips from 1 to 0, but on the other, it's this whole human, endless, complex, performative interaction. So I think that's really the handshake, sort of Michelangelo cling, of machine and human. And so by drawing it, I'm reenacting our relationship with the machine. So that, I would say in a nutshell, that's what it's about.
So a major focus here in this show lies on a series called JPEG, and it's a Chroma Lux print, and it's unique pieces. And maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the process and also what they stand for in your work.
Yes, again, using the compression technology is a thread in my work, which I recently discovered I also in '97 did a web page about a heavily compressed image. So it's going again way back, but it was vacant for a long time. And 2016, I think I made a series called Compressed Landscapes, which was a ode to Impressionism and Van Gogh specifically. I showed them at the Van Gogh Museum, and they were actually sort of dealing with the photography and the compressor and how that relates to Impressionism and landscapes. And that was the first time I used it. And then for an NFT in 2022, I think. 2022, yeah. I wanted to take it a step further in analyzing the effect of the compressor and took it more to the abstract expressionist. So I really wanted to sort of, like they would do, just have the paint speak, and I wanted the compressor to speak. So I created this sort of boiled down radical work where it's just code evoking the compressor to show its signature style. And that was this series of online pieces I did. I tweeted this being a work of code and codec only. That means so it's just algorithm and codec, and there's no image involved, because that's quite ironic, because JPEG was developed to bring images online. So it's always dealing with photographic of image material, and there's no files here. So it's just code and codec. That resulted in the series JPEG. And after that, I wanted to also bring them into the gallery space, because they're so heavily responding to the work of like Rothko or Barnett Newman. I wanted to see how they would get in dialogue when hanging on the wall. But that was no easy feat. It's always difficult to make a physical translation of a digital native work. I think personally, it's just printing something, it doesn't work. So I spent a long time looking around what was available, and I stumbled upon this dye sublimation on metal technique called chromolux, which is a form of coating, basically a hard coating of pigments on metal. I would call all my works contemplations on software. It's really, they're like meditation, so it's like staring at software and just dropping your presumptions and really observing them for what they are. It's not something we do a lot. We often get trapped in content mainly. I think that is probably a big disease of the contemporary situation, but it's very human. We've always been more interested in the content than the carrier. So to bring in Marshall McLuhan, the medium is the message, is something really close to my work, and I really try and express this message of the medium itself. And if you do that, it becomes something can be very profound and touching and emotional, and that is very close to what the abstract expressionist was saying. So and now I think you're liberated because you're dropping this act of painting, and sort of it's again a burden, sort of this subjective aspect of painting, and now it's really more the machine expressing, and it's still beautiful to see how we still get touched by that. So that's the aim.
So the newest work of this exhibition is called Selection, and it's also actually the title of this show. And it's an on-chain art piece, and it's a project together with Folia. And maybe you want to tell us more about that.
Absolutely. Selection, we chose it for this show as we discussed just now. We're showing is like these different threads in my work from the last 25 years. And as a double meaning, because it's this new work. And selection, the selection refers to the selection marquee we know so well from Photoshop. And it's also something I've been using in my work quite some time. I think the first time I used it was in 2006. And that was simply a selection marquee projected on the wall. So it was like really bringing in the digital into the physical space and trying to sort of merge them together. Back then I would just put a computer down, open Photoshop, select a part of the wall and walk away. It was like a live performance piece. And it's come back in many forms. I've done a lot of web-based projects using this theme and other projection works. And when I started doing NFTs, I was really, it was one of the first ideas I had, but I never could figure out how to do it. Because for this one, I wanted to do what a program like Photoshop does. And what they do, it's called like Boolean operations. So that means if you select a square and you select a rectangle on a part of it, then it has to sort of not just show two rectangles, but it has to add the centerpiece or exclude it. And that they're called Boolean like subtractions or unions. And they're difficult. That's mathematically difficult. But so I never got to do that. But for this project, I put my teeth in it and found a way to do it. Also, it also took a couple of years of learning about blockchain and what is possible to actually understand what to do. So this project is fully on chain. That means it's these generative clouds of selection. So imagine Photoshop, this complex selection, but then generated by code. And they're created from the contract and stored in the token and run as SVGs basically in a website. So that's all very technical, but basically it's a live generative piece completely encased in the contract on the Ethereum blockchain. So I find that a very elegant method because it doesn't rely on external sources. It makes it sort of conceptually very pure and elegant. It's the way I really appreciate working with the blockchain. And what we see here, it's the selection. Another aspect of it has a couple of background options. So it's as a wink and referral to Photoshop where you can turn off layers on and off. So it comes with a background color or gradient, but you can also flip them to black or white or transparent. That's when in Photoshop you would have all the layers off. And in this project we're offering the option that you can change those backgrounds in the contract. So it'll be possible to store it in your token so that everywhere, permanently, you would have this different background. The owner can always change it, but it's not a local change, it's a global change, and you will see it in all the marketplaces, the change you've changed.
So having a look at this exhibition here with all these different series of works, how did the last 25 years and the evolvements in technology have an influence on your work? What would you say?
I often say I have experienced or witnessed or been part of 3 waves of net art, and they coincide with the revolutions within the internet. So it's Web 1, Web 2 and Web 3, and you have like net art and post-internet and blockchain art. And these are 3 generations, 3 different technologies, and 3 different artistic disciplines in a way. So the first one was very close to my heart because it felt this pioneering, novel, open expansion into this new realm, which is very close or core to my work. It's always been that way. The second was introduction, of course, to social media and the impact that had, and when it was way more about content, and it's something that never really grabbed my work because it was just not within my interest field. But the output of the post-internet artists heavily influenced my work. And then, of course, blockchain came and again brought in a whole new generation. I really cherish it because it's a return to online art and net-specific work, which is where it all started for me. So where post-internet went more to the gallery space, this is back online, so it's very, very pure, and I can really express myself again in that way, and it's valued very much because it's the language we share with the Web3 community. But then there's this heavy aspect, I mean, in the corner where I'm interested in on generative aspects. So again, there's a whole new ball game brought in. And you can imagine, of course, now AI is coming, and AI is bringing a whole different way of interacting with computing and different art forms, different discourses and scenes. So this technology is constantly surprising us, and in the wake of that come art disciplines and movements, and I'm afraid also big political shifts. But yeah, my work always goes back to the root. So it's not about the politics. It's not about the content or the movements, it's really about the material itself and the network computer as an entity and how we relate to each other.
So thank you very much. That was a very clear and round-up end, and thank you anyway for your time and for this wonderful exhibition. And if you would like to get to know more about Jan Robert Leegte and his work, you can always get in touch or check on our website.